High summer, how much food can you get from a small space? This is 25 square meters, 270 square feet, and we're cropping quite a bit of some things all the time. It doesn't all come at once, but I'm showing you here what we're picking at the moment and also what we're planting in the middle of summer, and watering as well. There's been quite a bit of watering this year. It's much drier than usual and more sunny actually. I mean, sun is great if you've got the water that you can apply to the roots, because more sunlight means more photosynthesis and higher output of crops like the cucumbers here. They're really motoring now, and I've been picking quite a few, and you can see they're coming ready all the time. You've got a choice of what size you harvest them at. I'm taking about that big. This is a variety called La Diva. There's another one there. I would say on average they're yielding one of these per day for 2 plants in that much space is what we're getting, occasionally more. But these cucumbers do need quite a bit of moisture to thrive, so I water these most days. And the flowers in front is Malapi Vulcan Trifida, a particularly lovely one that just keeps going. I do like to dot the flowers around in zinnias and dahlias, you'll see. While at this end we have some herbs, so there's chives there. They certainly need watering if you want to keep them going, and a small bay tree in a pot, which gives quite a few leaves, quite enough actually. And then the tomatoes here, they're growing on a structure that I was given this spring. I'd never tried it before and didn't know how it would do. And at first I thought, wow, this is quite flimsy. But actually, it's stood the test of quite a bit of wind. And this is washing line. So it's plastic which won't rot. Someone was throwing it out. The guy who brought it, he'd salvaged that from somebody's refuse. And the poles are 2 feet, 60 centimeters into the ground. So it is pretty secure. And there's a really clever way of changing the height of the plant. So by unclipping these blue clips, you can let out more of the thin wire and push the clip back. And if you need to drop the plants because they're going up to the top, which incredibly doesn't happen much in our climate normally, they've put on more growth than normal this year. And one thing I'm going to do, within about 2 weeks, I'll be pinching out the tops. It feels a shame to do that, but when you stop all growth, no more growth at all from early August, and that puts more energy off the plant into existing fruit. You're more likely to get all the fruit ripe. Here the leeks went in after cabbage and kohlrabi and broccoli, so they were cropping in the spring. And we planted these about 2 weeks ago. So these leeks were sown in April. That's a good time for main crop leeks, any time in April, in my small module cells, and then potted on into 7 centimeter pots, which went in the ground from the pot. So they got a good head start. They're about 3 months old when they actually go in the ground. And we're watering them as well. But having them laid out in lines saves on water, because you can just run out a hose or watering can along each line until they get bigger anyway. And that saves water at the moment. And same with the French beans. So these I sowed direct between lettuce. So the lettuce was still cropping, taking off the outer leaves regularly. And I popped the seed in just amongst the lettuce basically. And they've all come up. It's a pleasant surprise. That's a variety called Slenderette. And we'll see how they do. But potentially that's going to give French beans through into autumn. I find here they crop really well in September, almost better than in the summer. So I'm looking forward to them, because we're having a bit of trouble getting good beans at the moment. But this end of the garden is very dry because of the trees behind the fence in my neighbour's garden taking quite a bit of moisture. We did cut a trench along there 2 winters ago, but you can never get the deeper roots. So we reduced some of the rooting into the garden. But it just means more watering and more often watering, because the tree roots are always there. So if you give a big dose of water, you're giving a lot to the trees. But if you give little and often rather than a lot and seldom, more of it will go to the vegetables. And I just make sure I keep these watered. And it was a similar story for the dahlias, because there were 3 dahlias here, and the middle one never really looked happy and it was always wilting. So actually I took it out, and well, I'm just keeping them watered enough to keep them going. Dahlias do like quite a bit of water. Well, here, this is an interesting way to grow things in terms of watering, because you can only really get water in the top. So from maybe a minute or minute and a half about every 2 or 3 days, so that there's enough moisture to drift down. This chili plant tells me how I'm doing on that, because it will wilt if I haven't given enough water. And plants wilting doesn't mean they're dying, but they're not happy, and they'll grow more if you can give them moisture. And it's helped the chili that the strawberries have been cut back. So when they finish fruiting, I cut all strawberries, not right back, but close to the smallest growing leaf. And also I cut the runners off, because in this context here, I mean, that needs to come off because they can't really root anywhere. So it's basically taking energy from the plant. Whereas over there on those strawberries, they've just finished fruiting. That's a variety called Florence. At the end of fruiting time, I cut the leaves off. But in this case, I took a bit more time and trouble over it, because I wanted to keep the runners, and then I watered as well, so that they'll make new plants, which I'm going to plant elsewhere, because that bed of strawberries there is 3 years old, and this year it was not as good as last year. We still had loads of strawberries, but I can see that it's given of its best. So those plants will come out once the runners have rooted, and then I'll need to plant them somewhere else. Well, these plants, it's their first year, so all the leaf they make now will feed into next year's crop, all being well, if I just keep them watered. It's lovely basil here, that's Greek basil, which we cut far enough that you can get new growth coming out the sides, so that carries on cropping. The jostaberry here, I think it's suffered from being too close to tree and hedge. It has not given fantastic fruit, and the birds did get quite a few. Kind of wasn't worth covering it really, and I never got around to it. Whereas the tayberry on the wall gave a lot, and we had fantastic crop off that. Now we've cut out the old stems and trained in the new ones. That's the classic thing you do with most of those raspberry, blackberry crosses. Here there's an interesting thing happened which wasn't planned. We planted beetroot here in June, about 5 weeks ago, when it was still cool, and I was afraid of rabbits eating the leaves, so I put fleece over it. It was all done in a bit of a rush, and I couldn't lay my hands on mesh, which I would have used normally. And I've normally thought that fleece gets a bit too hot in the summer, but actually these beetroot are doing all right. And I gave them a bit of water last night through the fleece, but you can see they're looking strong. And they're multisown, same as the leeks, so there's a few together in a clump. When you look at a multisown clump, you'll notice often there's one bigger than the others. And if you twist it like that rather than pull, that will enable you to remove it without disturbing the others, which can then grow on. So this variety is called Flaming Barrel, and it's really beautiful. It has lovely orange and yellow rings on the inside, and a great flavour. It's really sweet. I like to eat it raw. And that's going to give harvest right the way through the autumn. And lastly, I want to do a bit of new planting of salads for the autumn. So this area was fantastic early summer peas, and it was peas the last time we were here in the small garden. And we just cleared them by cutting their stalks. You can still see the remains of the pea plant and its root. Just cut them near ground level, take them away to compost. And it's actually been empty for a while, waiting for these salads. And all of the salads I'm planting here were sown about 3.5 weeks ago, but you could still sow them now. In the case of chicory, just if you want them for radicchio. So this is a variety called 506 TT, and it's in my range on Premier Seeds Direct. I do recommend this variety particularly because it makes a beautiful head, a beautiful coloured head, and they come to crop say through late September, October, when lettuce is not really doing so much. It's not a lettuce, but it's a kind of lettuce relative, you might say. Chicory, endive, lettuce are all the same family of plants, and you can actually save seed from all of them quite easily if you want to. And this endive is actually from home saved seed last year, and it's a plant that was a volunteer just growing actually near the wormery, and I just let it grow and flower, and we saved seed from it, and here they are. And I must say, with the home saved seed like this, they're really vigorous plants. So I'm putting them in a little bit deep, as you can see, and that's to help the roots, the root ball, to stay moist. So dropping them into the holes which I dibbed already. So dibbing, I find, is quick, easy way to make many planting holes, and enables you really to pop in plants very quickly, as you can see, because the hole is just the right size for these module root balls. And I'm giving a firm push down on the root ball, enabling it to have good contact with the soil and compost around it. And I'm going then to give a good watering to these plants, because unless it was going to rain, which is definitely not going to, the water helps to make good contact between the roots and the soil and compost around them. So a little bit deep, that just helps to hold the moisture. And I'm putting endive on this side, which is a bit more shady from the shed. And on the slightly brighter side, I'm putting these lettuce, and they are Maravilla di Verona. Again, it's one of my recommended ones from Premier Seeds Direct. And again, I'm putting them in pretty deep. Sometimes it feels like, wow, that's deeper than is going to work with lettuce, because they don't have a long stem. But I've always found that this is a brilliant way to plant them. And usually we'd be putting these lettuce in quite a bit smaller than this. These have been sitting in a tray for nearly 4 weeks now, which in the summer is quite long. We planted some last week of the same sowing, and at that point they were 17 days old. So that's to give you an idea. You don't have to wait very long between raising your plants and popping them in the ground. And once I finish this, they're going to have a really good dose of water on top, and then I'll water them probably every second day after that. And while I'm here, I shall also water the strawberries, because I want these runners. So there's a strawberry runner that I just pushed in the ground yesterday evening. It's not rooted yet, but it's got the potential to make roots and make a new plant, as long as I keep that area watered. So this is the main watering priority at the moment, together with the cucumbers and to a lesser extent the tomatoes and leeks. So watering is a big thing going forward, and then these will start harvesting outer leaves sometime in a month or so. Chicories will make a heart in about 2.5 months. So there's lots of food coming up here in the small garden. We'll come back here sometime in the autumn.